All righty. Good evening, everybody. We're gonna wait for a few people to filter in here. I'm gonna check in with my team, make sure they can hear me. Good evening, everybody. We're going to be talking about snow shower risks here over the next few days here. Going to let some folks here trickle in to start. Good evening, everybody. Turn off my echo here. Good evening. Good evening. Band meteorologist John Kemper here. I'm going to give it probably until about 8:05. And then we will go ahead and get started talking about the forecast here. Really over the next few days, it's going to be quite active. But specifically tomorrow, I want to make sure no one's caught off guard with some of the scattered snow showers that will be in the forecast here. So thank you, Hope. Hope says I'm all good with the sound, which is good. It's a problem we have every once in a while, but hope everyone's having a good Tuesday evening here. I've been keeping an eye on the Hoosiers, which also happen to be playing Michigan State right now. Just got to halftime, so really excited about the national championship. It's going to be coming up here on Monday as well. Go Hoosiers! So we'll give it another minute or so for more people to roll in here. But yeah, I would say in general here, and I'll go ahead and switch my screen over here so you guys can kind of see where I'm going to start here. Once again, some more snow squalls that are going to be in the forecast, which are going to cause some pavement impact concerns as we get into tomorrow morning here. So there you go. I think you guys can see that here a little bit better now. So I am going to go ahead and get started here, actually, just because I'm seeing some viewers filter in here. First and foremost, and we'll get a little bit more into this here later, but I want to give a quick shout out here to Custom Restorations, partners with them here in Indianapolis. Great group of people, always stepping up to help when disaster strikes. But we wouldn't be able to do this particular live stream without them. So make sure to go on their website and check them out here. Hope will put that link in the comments here as well. But let's go ahead and get started here talking about the forecast as we get into tomorrow here. So first and foremost, I want everybody to take a screenshot of this graphic here. Brett Waltz always does an awesome job with these colored graphics that's showing the general time frames here, if you will. And I think this is a perfect example of that band of snow showers that we're going to be watching with some snow squall potential as that pushes in from the north to the south. Now, with this, it's been a little bit warmer out. There will be some rain showers that'll happen beforehand, but I do think, and I'll get into this here, even with some warmer temperatures, there can still be some impacts as that cold front continues to push to the south here. So I'm going to start off here with the latest model data here, and I've kind of got my screen tagged up here. You can see these timings here in the upper left-hand corner here. This is right as we get to around 3 a.m. Eastern time frame, 2 a.m. Central time frame here. And notice we're likely going to be dealing with some showers along and south of that I-64 corridor to start, and more of a mix here across portions of Wisconsin, Michigan, northeastern Iowa here. That's going to be the cold front that's gradually going to start pushing from the north to the south here. So this is as we get towards 4, 5, 6, and then 7 a.m. Eastern time frame here. I do think that across the I-70 corridor, we're going to start off with a lot of dry time here. But as we start to watch that band beginning to move into the greater Chicago area towards the I-80, I-90 corridor, Lansing, Detroit area, I do think that while temperatures can be just above freezing, there can be just enough of a punch in these snow squalls, so to speak, to allow for some slushy accumulations to overcome that warmer pavement and stick, causing some slick spots for the AM commute here. Now, this is 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and 11 a.m. Eastern time frame when we gradually start to see more or less that band or snow squall beginning to push more from the north to the south here. Now, one trend I do want to bring up, and that's why it's so important to have Clarity Home, because this is where we can issue those nowcast graphics, very similar to the one that I just showed from meteorologist Brett Waltz here. But those help us in real time as we track this activity developing later tonight. Jake and Hope are going to be keeping a close eye on that here as well. What can happen in these systems is sometimes they can speed up an hour or two. So that can definitely be a factor, especially if you're trying to get out the door a little bit earlier in the morning. So we'll keep you posted on that, of course, via social media. But the best way to go about that and staying up to date is to sign up for that Clarity Home so that you can always get those updates here. But let's continue on with the forecast here. And then I will take some additional questions here. I'm going to pull this up so I can see if you guys have any questions getting into this here. Just as we get towards that 11 a.m. and finally 12 p.m., 1 p.m. Eastern time frame here. Now, there can be some rain that can be out ahead of this here, southern Indiana, central Ohio. And a lot of you are going to notice, whether you're using Clarity, you're looking at the temperatures, that they're going to be a little bit above freezing in this particular situation. And that's why this graphic is so crucial here. This is where we do think that some snow squalls, which a snow squall is a burst of snow. It's heavy. It reduces visibility. Gusts of 35 mile per hour plus can be possible. Near zero visibility, of course, but they can cause hazardous traveling conditions. And even if it's a little bit warmer out there, they can allow for some quick coatings, even if they only last for 30 minutes. So definitely something that can cause impacts. Many of us, especially across northern Indiana, I believe it was last week that these weeks in the winter kind of blend together here, but where we started seeing more of that activity working in from the north to the south. So a little bit a similar setup here. Now, of course, we have Lake Michigan to keep an eye on here as well that will come into play with the forecast here. But this is as we get more towards that 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and then 5 p.m. Eastern time frame here. And this is where I want to keep a closer eye here on central northeastern Ohio here as that system works in from the northwest to the southeast. But also, we're likely going to be dealing with a single but rather large lake effect band that's going to develop off of Lake Michigan. There is some uncertainties here as to where that's going to set up. I think for the most part, between kind of that South Bend, LaPorte County area, we need to keep an eye on kind of as that activity pushes in from the northwest to the southeast here. And you can kind of see that visually here. I'm going to move to another model that shows that a little bit better. Actually, let me move this here so you can kind of see this band. This is as we get a little bit closer to around that 7, 8, 9, and then 10 p.m. Eastern time frame. Notice that band in northern Indiana, southwestern Michigan. It's not moving very quickly here, and that's going to have rates of 1 inch to 1.5 inches per hour associated with it. So the one thing that I do not necessarily agree with on this model, and again, this is as we get towards around that 9 p.m. Eastern time frame tomorrow, Wednesday, is that I do think across central Indiana into west central Ohio, we can see some additional flurries and lighter scattered snow showers working in from the north to the southeast. I think the intensity might not be there, but given how cold pavement will be at that point, that will be something that we will need to keep an eye on here. One of the tools that we have, and if you're in the snow removal service, this is a must-have, but I think Pavecast really shows this. This is a little bit closer towards the Kokomo area here, and you can kind of see the snow chances and the general increase in potential for snow. The most likely here at the bottom, the max up at the top. And then this Pavecast feature here, it's showing right as we start to deal with more of those snow squalls, the pavement temperatures are a little bit higher than what the air temperatures are. And so even though I still think that we can see some brief slushy accumulations develop, it will gradually melt just given how warm the pavement temperature is. But even if you're seeing snow on pavement, that is going to help cool the pavement down even further. And that's why as we get into the evening, you can start to see Pavecast towards 5, 6, 7 p.m. Temperatures at that point are going to be below freezing. And that's why any type of activity coming off of the lake is going to be able to stick and cause slick spots, even some coatings as we get further into the evening and into the overnight time frame here. Another thing I do want to go ahead and mention here, even if we don't see as much of those snow squalls, if you will, working as far south as we get later into the Wednesday evening into the Thursday morning time frame here, I do think gusts of 30 miles per hour plus with this system will be possible. So that will aid in reducing visibility, and it can keep our pavement impacts a little bit more scattered here for those of us that are downstream of the lake, but definitely still going to be a concern for traveling here given some of those more elevated gusts. Let me go ahead and continue to take this out here, if you will, through the remainder of the Thursday morning time frame. This is around midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Notice this is about hour 10 of where that band is just sitting there. So I would expect some fluctuation a little bit more towards the west, perhaps a little bit closer to the greater Valparaiso area here, but we'll need to keep an eye on that band, as I do think that one of the things that can happen as we get colder And as we get a little bit closer into the morning hours, this would be right around that 5 a.m. Eastern time frame on Thursday morning. Notice how that band's starting to reach closer to Muncie, Portland, the Dayton areas here along eastern Indiana, western Ohio. So that's just an occupational hazard, if you will, of the lake effect snow. The colder we get, the cold front at this point way far to the south, that's where we can start to see that band extend a little bit further to the south, southeast, something we will definitely be watching in a localized fashion as we get into the Thursday morning time frame here. Now, I do think that as we get, this would be right around the 12 p.m. Eastern time frame on Thursday, we're continuing to deal with lake effect snow. And I don't want to discount northeastern Ohio here, because notice we've been dealing with lake effect snow there for almost a 12 to 15 hour period. So definitely some heavier totals there as well. But I think the band that will have the heavier rates, just given the wind direction and orientation, is likely going to be more downstream of Lake Michigan here. That would be more southwest of Holland, west, if you will, of the Kalamazoo area here. And as we get into the afternoon, I think that the length and or duration of the band can start to shorten a little bit just as those winds begin to weaken here. Now, let me show you guys the latest in terms of totals. This is as we get into Wednesday morning through the Thursday PM time frame. A couple things I do want to make clear here is that for those of us that are in that gray area, when we say scattered coatings of up to 0.5, what that means is not everybody is going to see a coating of snow. This is just kind of the general area where we think snow showers all the way from Wednesday morning, early Thursday afternoon into the evening hours will have kind of a general risk area to see some of those coatings and slick spots. There can be some locations, in my opinion, I think Indianapolis, Lafayette, and Dayton would be a perfect example of this. They can see a potential for 2 rounds of snow, one late morning, early Wednesday afternoon here, just kind of given that initial activity. Melting, of course, going to be possible. That'll help limit things. But then as we get into the evening and we see some additional kind of snow showers downstream, if you will, I do think that the pavement temperatures will definitely be cold enough there as well. But obviously your downstream lake effect zones here, where we're looking at a general swath of 4 to 6 inches just to the west of South Bend, west of that US 31 corridor, and then towards the Cleveland area, the snow belt, northeastern Ohio. That's kind of just given where we're looking at those winds being a little bit more oriented from west to east, where I think the better risks are likely going to be here. So that green outlined area, that helps us indicate that there are going to be some risks for some snow squalls, where we can see some of those localized showers that can have more of the intense bursts, gusts of 35 plus miles per hour, and again, near zero visibility. So definitely a hazard there that we will want to go ahead and keep an eye on here as well. So I'm going to take a quick pause here, look at some of the questions here that are coming in here. Guys, make sure to use the chat feature here in the streams. Ask some questions. Happy to get with you guys here. I'm going to keep on going with the forecast briefing, but one thing I also do want to say here as well is I want to again shout out our sponsors at Custom Restorations here. Winter's in full swing. We've got severe weather right around the corner. Obviously, we don't want disaster, but when it happens, it's good to have a contact, a trusted group to work with, and these guys are the best. So the website's already been enlisted in our comment feed, but make sure to check them out if you need them here. So I want to go ahead and pivot back to this graphic here for those of you that are just joining. Again, these reflect not the only times that we're expecting snow squalls, but it shows kind of when that initial wave is going to be possible, and that will at least allow for some of those more slushier accumulations to be possible initially. So this is again a perfect example of what we have in Clarity right now. This is more for our pro and business side and the hourly insights right now. As we get into tomorrow morning timeframe, expect to see nowcasts as we're going to be tracking this. You're going to see it on your current radar, and you can go ahead and get that notification for a nowcast for those of you that sign up for Clarity Home. That will keep you posted on the general timing and what impacts we are actively seeing here with this area here. So perfect here. I would say, yep, let's go ahead. And I'm seeing a couple questions here come in as we get into the weekend and later on into the forecast. So I'll go ahead and press ahead, if you will, for the next system. This is as we get a little bit, let's talk about the Thursday evening, Friday morning wave here that starts to work into the area as well. So for those of you that have been following along with us here, looking at Michael and Brett's long range forecasts, this is a very active pattern. And in all honesty, I'm looking at snow chances across the board through Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, really for the next 6 to 7 days without much of a stop. So we have clipper systems moving in, lake effects, and flurry chances. This would be another clipper system that we would need to watch here as we get into that Thursday afternoon, evening time frame, right as we get close to around that 4-5 Eastern time frame here. Another system starting to push through eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois. This is a little bit more of an aggressive model that we use. It's one of our Canadian members, but overall, it's done really well, in all honesty, this year with some of these colder patterns. And that's why we're thinking that the coverage can be a little bit further south. At this point, this would be as we get towards that 11 p.m. Eastern time frame on Thursday evening here. You can kind of see that band, if you will, of some decent half-inch per hour rates that can sweep through the area here. And also, as we kind of take this through, let's take this all the way through about 7 a.m. Eastern time frame on Friday morning. It's also going to keep the lake effect zones primed for some additional enhancement here, especially from the northwest. And you can kind of see there is just a kind of an off-on pattern here through Friday morning of some of these scattered snow showers that can work through the region. So in terms of more widespread accumulations versus scattered coatings, Thursday evening through Friday morning in general, if you're outside of the lake effect zones, this would be the area that we would keep an eye on here. This is 1 p.m. Eastern time frame on Friday here, and this is we get closer to 7 p.m. Eastern time frame on Friday as well. This would be the next potential that we would really need to watch for squalls based on the system here, even some grapple that can mix in there as well. But in terms of our latest totals for that particular system here, it's Thursday 7 p.m. through Friday 7 p.m. here. I think the trend that we need to watch here is potentially extending that 1 to 2 zone a little bit closer to the I-70 corridor here. I'm not ready to put that towards Indianapolis and Dayton, as I think snow showers, the further south you go, you start running into a little bit more of drier air issues. But I definitely think this is going to be much more of a widespread area that we will need to keep a little bit of a closer eye on as we get closer to this system here. So I do think in terms of the weekend system here, we're keeping an eye on a couple of some of that activity here. I'm going to kind of show a couple favored models here, and again, these are systems that we're going to have to fine tune. There's definitely a lot of energy that is working through the area here during this time frame. I'll kind of circle back here as we get more towards this would be, let me here, actually. This is Synoptic, by the way. I think you guys have seen us use this before, synopticwx.com. Go to that website. These weather models are all free for you to use. You can zoom in, zoom out. This is a product that we use daily when we're doing our video updates as well, one of several that we use, and it's very great and user-friendly. But I know there's many of you here on Facebook and Twitter that just interested in the weather and love to follow along. And this is a perfect site for you to go out there and do that on. So this is we get towards Saturday morning time frame here. And again, the further we get out into the forecast, the less confident we are in the exact timing and the organization of some of these systems. The one thing that I do know and that we are fairly certain with here, I'm going to toggle up the temperatures, is that the cold air is returning. That is something that we've been talking about for a while. That's not going to go away. It does make, I was talking with the team about this today. It does make the forecasting aspect a little bit easier because when you're dealing with January, you have less daytime heating and you're dealing with those prolonged colder temperatures. Most of the time when it's going to snow, it's going to stick. So we don't have to worry as much about the melting risks, which is what we're going to be dealing with over the next 24 hours because we're coming from a little bit more of a warmer time frame here. But to kind of take you through that system here, might get a little bit more of a break as we get into the Saturday evening, Sunday, but then we need to watch for another system. Again, the simulated radar might be a little too weak here, but Monday morning, there is another clipper system that I think can roll in from the northwest to the southeast. And you guys can see where that colder air is coming from. That is the Arctic air that is entering the region here. This is 7 a.m. Check out those temperatures. Those are -10, -15. That's what's giving us the cold tap and the access to some of that moisture here with the snow showers. So one last, before I start answering some more specific questions here, I want to show one more thing. This is clarity. This is our future 7-day snowfall total map here. The one thing I will say, I think it might be a little bit too weak in eastern Iowa. We're favoring things to be a little bit heavier, and that's with that southern extent of the snow system rolling in Thursday. But check out the colors, guys, in western Michigan, west of Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids here. This is our blended model over the next 7 days here. It does not often show this. 20 to 25 inches of snow is what I saw this morning. Now we're starting to get closer to 25 plus. So definitely going to, I would say, probably be a little bit more localized. The band can be a little bit smaller. but that's a pretty robust signal across Lake Michigan in that area for some heavy snow. Even towards Cleveland, which just got done with a heavier system, 8 inches over the next 7 days, and the system activity in northern Indiana continuing to extend after multiple lake effect shots here over the next few days. So something to keep an eye on here. But this is winter is back, is what I'm trying to say here. So okay, let me start going through some of these questions. You guys have been very, very patient here. Brandon, I appreciate that, sir, very much. No problem, of course, at all. And Nancy, of course. And Sarah, yeah, I saw your question here. I do think there's accumulating snow this weekend for the Indy area. I think your best shot, in my opinion, is probably going to be more on Friday. And I think Sunday night is probably the next Clipper system that would offer that. I think we can still see some flurries. There's definitely snow potential on the table Saturday evening into Sunday. I just think the energy that's producing the snow might be a little bit weaker compared to those other two Clippers. But if you have clarity, if you're looking at other forecasts, that's why there's snow in the forecast every day. We've just got that colder pattern that's keeping things primed here. So Bloomington, Indiana, and Terre Haute. So I'll kind of go ahead and do a quick summary here for the first part of this here. This would be tomorrow morning through Thursday PM here. So both Terre Haute and Bloomington, you're in that scattered coatings to 0.5 range. So for those of you that are along and south of the I-70 corridor, you've got a little bit more warmer pavement than we do versus Indianapolis or Lafayette. So I think that first morning wave, if you will, or into the early afternoon, which again, I'll show one of our graphics here to depict that. Terre Haute, Vigo County is right on the edge of that here. But I do think in general that as we get a little bit later into the afternoon and evening, any of those downstream squalls that we can see, I do think they'll have the potential to put down a quick coating. I just think melting will likely be a little bit more of the dominating factor the further south that you go, that can help limit some of those risks and keep them a little bit more localized. For Terre Haute, Bloomington, your best chance, and this is, square just to the south of I-70 here, Bloomington, and then Terre Haute towards Vigo County. You're right in that 0.5 to 1 zone. I feel pretty confident about that. I think if there's a risk at this point is that we get a little bit too far south. And I think this is more Evansville, Louisville area where we can be a little bit more scattered in nature. But right now, I think at least Thursday evening into Friday evening, you're in a good spot to see more of a widespread coating up to an inch of snow here at this time. So 2 to 3 inches drop toward Howard County. If you think the snow down to Indy too. Well, I think for kind of this zone in particular, if I can see and it's kind of a double-edged sword here. So if the system slows down a bit and the intensity of the system weakens, we might see a little bit more of a north to south track instead of northwest to southeast. But what can happen with that sometimes, if the system becomes a little too weak, it will struggle to keep those heavier rates as far south as what this graphic shows. So I would say at this point, I think that it's possible. I think the northern part of Howard County should be prepared for 2 to 3 inches of snow. I'm just a little bit skeptical of extending that too far south, just given that, kind of based on the latest data, things have been a little bit further to the east than what our map has with this initial band. So I would say the risk for all of our locations, northeastern Indiana, southern Michigan, is that this can trend a little bit further to the east. I would say Fort Wayne, Noble, LaGrange County, keep an eye on that risk as we get into tomorrow and we track where that band ends up developing here. Muncie, I think the same applies to you. Given that colder air that we have access to Thursday morning, I can most certainly see a scenario where there's a streak of 1 to 2 going across the northern part of Delaware County. I definitely think that's something that we will need to watch here. Okay, perfect, good. Thank you guys for the questions here. I would say right now for Greenwood, it's definitely, I think that you're in a good spot to get some scattered coatings of 0.5, including snow squalls, specifically during the afternoon time frame that can reduce visibility and cause some slick spots. I think that the downstream risk for lake effect snow is a little bit less compared to Muncie and locations more in this southeastern corridor, but certainly need to keep an eye on some flurries and slick spot risks as we get into the early Thursday morning commute, especially here. So Kim, driving to Fort Wayne Friday night to watch Grandson and Honors Choir. That sounds awesome. We'll be driving back to Muncie around 8 p.m. We'll be okay. I would say at this point that my concern for for Friday evening here. This is a snapshot, and most data agrees with this here around 7 p.m. Eastern time frame, is that while I don't think the snow will necessarily be widespread, I think that the squalls, the squall risk, some of these heavier bursts can cause some visibility concerns and some gusty winds. So that's something that you'll have to keep an eye on here for sure. I've been up I-69 multiple times in the winter to go up to northern Indiana to visit my folks up there, and that's just this time of year. Visibility can go from 10 to 0 very quickly. So just keep that risk in mind. Be prepared to slow down when that happens. But I do think, honestly, I would say almost the visibility, in my mind, the visibility and the wind concerns with the squall are more of a concern compared to the slick spot risks. And the only reason I say that is because if they adequately pre-treat the roads in this situation with where temperatures are going to be, I think the slick spot risk would be a little bit more localized. But don't hold me to that. Be prepared for slick spots. But the visibility in this particular situation in the evening when it's dark out has more of my concern at this point here. Phil, that is a fantastic question. I will pivot to that because I want to show you guys a system that we're watching as we get towards the 21st, 22nd time frame here that models have been confident on. But let me answer some of these more short-term questions here. Thoughts on the impact here for South Bend. So my concern here, and I'm just going to pivot to the blend here real quick because this shows the next 7 days. I think you're definitely in the 4 to 6 range easily through Thursday PM. I think that's going to happen. My concern is that the clipper systems that are going to continue to move across the area, push in from northwest to southeast here, that's going to cause the wind orientation to be right off of the lake. And I don't disagree with blended totals here showing somewhere between 13 and 16 inches here through next Tuesday. I think that's definitely warranted. I think your worst timeframes for that are going to be now through Thursday PM. And I think we need to keep an eye on that clipper system Sunday through Tuesday morning of next week as well, where winds can be oriented a little bit more into your favor here. So let me keep on looking here. Push I'll do my best to push the lake effect down to Greenwood. It's kind of like what I said with the start of the simulated radar here. Let me show you real quick. This is as we get towards. Let me push this a little bit more. 5 p.m. Eastern time frame. Notice the wind orientation here. So if we can get a little bit more north to south, maybe we can get some lake effect flurries that can get as far south as the Greenwood area. But I would say just in general, I think probably more along east of I-69, northeastern Indiana, you're going to have the better potential of seeing most of the more robust lake effect impacts here at this time. So Kim, no problem at all here, guys. I'm trying to make sure I'm getting all of your questions here. Danville, Crawfordsville. Let's talk about the short term here, and then I'll get into kind of, I'm seeing some 7-day questions here as well. Generally, I think you're better off. I think you have a better potential for snow impacts compared to Bloomington and Terre Haute in these areas here. Again, you're not as close to downwind of the lake, but our pavement temperatures are going to have a little bit of an easier time between I-70 and I-74 corridor of getting cold enough to cause some slushier impacts as we get into the early afternoon as that cold front passes through. So I would expect scattered coatings, some snow squalls to work in and cause some reduction in visibility here as well. And then as we get into that next system here, again, I want to watch that 1 to 2 zone. If we can continue to see stronger trends with this system, I definitely think there can be a couple streaks of 1 to 2 that can get as far south as Crawfordsville and Danville and Hendricks County. But again, a little bit too early to expand that far south. The models that we're using right now are quite aggressive with this system. So there's not a lot of model support for that. It's just more of a how we've seen these systems trend throughout the winter. They have that tendency here. So let me go ahead and show a little bit more kind of what we're looking at in terms of the next 7 days. There is a system, and I want to emphasize this again for those of you that watch the long range videos, that especially that Michael put out. I'm just showing you what the simulated radar is showing, and I'm telling you how I think that system is going to evolve. I'm not necessarily on board with any totals that are being shown, or even the track for that matter. It's just more of what the operational models here are starting to spit out that makes sense with our teleconnections, our long range data that support it. So I'm going to toggle up here the GFS 18Z for just a second. And I also kind of want to progress with this here as we look at temperatures here. This as we get towards Tuesday morning. Notice we start to get into the teens. Wednesday morning, again, still in the teens. Start to get more into Thursday morning, perhaps a little bit of moderation, some warmer air pumping back up. But for the most part, we're going to stay cold. There is going to be a 4 or 5 day period where we're likely going to struggle to get above freezing for those of us that are along and north of the I-70 corridor here. That's just the pattern that we're in. So I think the system that we need to keep an eye on here, the 22nd and the 23rd, this is one that we've been monitoring, is that we likely start to deal with more of one of these southwest and northeast systems. Now, this model, by the way, and I'll give you a perfect example for it. Let's see, this is 24th at 1 a.m. Let me go back and show it to you what the last run looked like. Okay, so it's one of those consistencies where it's struggling. But what it does have and what it's telling us as forecasters is it's agreeing with the fact that we have a system that we need to keep an eye on the 22nd and 24th. It would not surprise me to see something in this case that would show some type of snow on the northern side towards I-70 and more of a mix towards I-64. This is not the official forecast yet, and I don't know if it's really going to be this robust, but this is the type of pattern that we're in where this would be supported. So I want to really keep an eye on that date in particular, because one of our analog years, 2009, the winter, had a very similar looking system to this in terms of temperatures, and where we saw a widespread swath of snow of 6 inches to a foot and some icing concerns in southern Indiana, northern Kentucky. So that is most certainly something that we will need to watch. And I would say that the 22nd through the 24th, that is the next winter storm system that we would need to watch here for sure. So, and again, just to emphasize this for those of you that are just clicking on the stream now because you see I'm showing a winter storm, this is what the last run of the GFS had too. So it shows a system, but we just don't have as much colder air. We don't have as much energy. So that's the one to watch to answer your guys' question. And I think in general, that would be our next stronger storm risk. And when I say stronger storm risk, I'm not trying to say that these systems are not impactful. This is a quick, simulated radar as we get into Wednesday afternoon and then Thursday afternoon. But these are more of your clipper systems. The totals are a little bit lighter. They impact travel, but you're not dealing with those prolific, heavier snow amounts outside, of course, of your localized lake effect snow bands. So those, of course, are going to be very impactful. But the winter storm systems, those are the ones that really can wreak havoc across the region here. So. Perfect. So yeah, some of these other counties here, Grant County, Lawrence County, I would say in general, let me kind of start off with our snow squall timeframes, and I'm going to run through this one more time here before I let us go. But this is our general thinking for tomorrow for the short term, again, of where I think it will likely start to see more of the risk for snow squalls. Remember, snow squalls, it's not just the slick spots in the coating, it's the zero visibility that can be associated with them as a result of those higher wind gusts, 35 to 40, and they can happen quickly. So whether you're on the interstate, whether you're traveling, they can cause whiteout conditions and cause issues. So I do think that this graphic shows when that initial wave along the front or a little bit behind the front that's going to be pushing in from the northwest to the southeast, where that will be possible. But again, I think that in general, the further south you go, the more brief those slushy accumulations will be here. And again, a perfect example of this. Let me pull up Clarity here one more time. Let's go down to, let me see. Let me pull up Bloomington as a good example here. So you can start to see there's a little bit of rain that starts to work in, and then we have those snow systems that work through 3, 4, 5. When this says melting snow impossible, this is not ruling out slushy accumulations. I do think if the snow squall hits Bloomington, there will be brief slushy accumulations. But it's showing that melting snow icon because look how warm those pavement temperatures are. And give or take 5 degrees, that's still going to be enough to at least, even if you get a heavier burst, melt that. So that's why when I say brief slushy accumulations, that's what I'm talking about. Compared to you go further more towards the north, think of your areas, Lafayette, Kokomo, Marion, more towards the Portland area here. As I kind of pull that up and you're closer into the lake effect belt zones, you can see those gradual accumulation risks increasing. And you can see PaveCast down here, just an awesome feature showing those pavement temperatures starting to drop below freezing, and then more of a likely scenario of us seeing some of those slushy impacts. So that's how I would, and this is kind of, again, our last, or kind of our final look in here in terms of what we're favoring for snowfall totals as well. I want to mention again that this is something that our entire meteorology team has been talking about with clients for the past couple of days. If you're a Clarity Home subscriber, you can see our videos. We've got something new called the 60-second weather reel. So that gives you a quick look if you're trying to get out the door in the morning and you don't want to turn on the news and you want to just see what the day is going to bring for a hazard. You can click on that, and in 60 seconds you can be fully prepared and know what to expect. And that's in addition to the Nowcast that have the updated timing graphics, and so that you're not caught off guard. So that's one of the big reasons why Clarity Home was built, so that you can have all of those features that the professionals have and be fully aware of that activity as it moves in. So definitely something that I would highly suggest you check out. We've got the Clarity in the Comments thing. You can see in the upper left-hand corner as well, that QR code. You can scan that and sign up here as well. So I'm going to go through the simulated radar here one more time. And then yes, Evansville, you know what? This has just not been the year for snow for Evansville. Even this next system, I just have that feeling that it's probably going to be a little bit more scattered, John, than even what this graphic shows. And again, that system I was showing you guys for the 22nd, 23rd, that would be more of the mix zone, which I think, knowing the people down there in Evansville that I've talked with, I think they'd rather see snow than ice at this point, for sure. So again, something we'll keep an eye on, and of course keep you guys posted here. But let's run through the timing again one more time. And again, that graphic that I showed, this is perfect. I just want to give you guys more of a simulated radar visual here. 11 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m. Eastern time frame here. You can kind of start to see that band beginning to push northwest to southeast here. There can be a little bit of rain out ahead of it. For those of you, worried about treatment, I don't think it's going to be enough to wash it away. That's something we've been talking with our pavement clients a lot about. It's going to be fairly light in nature. But notice as we get towards the afternoon hours here, there is going to be a little bit of a gap across central Indiana and probably western Ohio here too, before we start to see that lake effect band begin to exert itself more from the northwest to the southeast here. And that really sets the stage for the remainder of the evening into Thursday morning in terms of the lake effect potential here. And definitely still dealing with some snow squalls across north central Ohio here as well, that it will be exiting along the front from west to east before we really start to see Lake Erie ramp up and start to deal with more of the accumulation risks east of Cleveland and closer towards the Akron area here. Perfect. Well, Kim, I appreciate that. Blizzard of 78, I was not alive for. I've studied it. Definitely an impactful system. I can't say having another blizzard like that would excite me. I think that's a little too impactful for my taste, even though I love winter weather. But most certainly, yeah, that system that we're looking at towards the 22nd and the 24th of January, that would be one to watch, that we might remember this winter more than we already do. So a lot can change, but that'll be the system to keep an eye on here. So. All right, well, guys, that is all that I have here. Go Hoosiers. They're behind with Michigan State. But even more so than that, if I don't join on a stream here anytime soon, go Hoosiers on Monday. So Brett and I and Michael are very excited about that game. So hope all of you have a